And yes, we are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn free, civilly disobedient radio on the web at coalitionradio.us, facebook.com/the Coalition Radio, and on the mighty, mighty Twitter at coalition_radio. We've got a hectic week here at Coalition Radio. Joining me on the line, let me dive right into it, is a gentleman that I've met, if you will, digitally just this week, with possibly one of the most eclectic backgrounds that I've ever had the privilege of meeting. Matt Hisrich is the founder of the website Quaker Libertarians. He currently serves as the director of recruitment and admissions for Earlham School of Religion, a Christian graduate theological school in the Quaker tradition in Richmond, Indiana. He has earned his master's in divinity there and his BA in political economy at the famous, world-renowned Hillsdale College in Michigan, truly one of the centers of liberty here in this country, where he studied Austrian economics. He has run for local office as a libertarian 3 times and has worked with state-based free market think tanks in Indiana, Kansas, and Ohio. Matt, welcome to the Coalition.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, this is indeed a pleasure. I guess at first blush, when I listened to, again, such a strong intellectually based foundation, yet at the same time, two seemingly, at least as portrayed in today's society, disparate backgrounds. You have managed to, in one sense, conquer both religious studies at a very high level, and yet at the same time, you are immersed in capitalism and Austrian economics. How did this come to be? Tell me.
Well, and that's really at the root of the site Quaker Libertarians. It's this integration of faith and economics. And I think when I came to Earlham School of Religion, I had the idea that I was going to sort of shed all of my politics and economic background and just be spiritual. But things just kept coming up that these weren't necessarily meant to be pulled apart, and opportunities kept presenting themselves to think about how those could come together. And that's kind of what I've been doing ever since. So that's kind of how that came about.
Well, here in the Northeast, you've got a dichotomy. On one hand, the Quaker movement, the Quaker religion, is fundamental to some of the earliest days here in America and some of the earliest quests for religious freedom, on one hand. Mm-hmm. Yet at the same time, very often folks who think of the Quaker tradition, of course, think of pacifism. They think of silent meeting, and they think of very simple meeting houses that typically are almost looked upon as historical sites as opposed to ongoing spiritual centers. And so there's this, I don't know if I want to call it a confusion, but an uncertainty about it, just how to address the Quaker movement. So can you give us a few minutes, and I know this is challenging because it's such a spiritual movement. Can you give us sort of a foundations of the Quaker movement and how it interacts with, I'll call it, more conventional religion?
Sure. Well, and I will give the caveat that I'm not a Quaker historian, so if understanding that. So, but I think really it emerges out of this radical context of the English Reformation and the English Civil War, this period where things were happening that didn't seem possible. I mean, they executed a king and had moved into what was not a monarchy in England at that time, which was sort of earth-shattering for many people to think about. And the Quakers were one of the many groups that emerged in that context and really had this, what others have described as an apocalyptic understanding that this was a time for radical change in how we went about our lives and how our faith was integrated with that life. And so I think that really impacted how they interacted with their fellow Christian other denominations and also the government of the time. And they were one of the first who said, "Look, we're going to lay down our swords. We're not interested in doing that." And that was a radical act at the time that led a lot of them to be persecuted and imprisoned. And that sort of stream of challenging conventional thought that's rooted in their faith understanding, their Christian history, has continued throughout the history. So I'm thinking about in U.S. history, this comes up during the Civil War and before, when they were active in the Underground Railroad, helping slaves move north, and continues on into the Civil Rights Movement. continues on into the kind of pacifism and questions of the warfare, welfare state that we have now. So there's this long history of saying, well, this happened in World War II during the internment camps that FDR was putting in place. Quakers were helping Japanese Americans come to school, including places like Earlham, and it's just a sort of again and again where we have been looking out for those who have been mistreated by the state and by what we would interpret as a misunderstanding of Christian faith.
Now, and I'm going to quote a passage from a website that I referenced, by the way, in today's show notes, and it really attempts to explain, if you will, what is almost inexplicable for folks who are in religions that are more dogma based. Mm-hmm. You talk about Christ as being a living reality and personal experience, not only in the Bible and church tradition. What do you mean, and it's particularly poignant, here we are on Easter weekend, as Christ as being a living reality and personal experience? Can you give us a definition of that?
Yeah, so part of that context in during the English Civil War was there were really state-appointed priests that were in each of the areas in England, and they may or may not have had any particular commitment to the faith lives of the communities they were overseeing. They were really sort of state positions that were funded, and matters of prestige and financing, and so the part of the Quaker testimony in that context was to say, look, it doesn't really matter where you've been to school. It doesn't matter who appointed you to your position. And George Fox, one of the founders of Friends, said that Oxford and Cambridge do not make a priest. This comes from inside, and they were challenging this idea that this Christianity is really about hierarchy. Instead, saying, and Fox again said, Jesus Christ has come to teach each of us ourselves, and you have access to that. And it was very powerful at that time, and I think continues to be a powerful message that it isn't either the sort of Catholic tradition being so strongly important, or the Protestant sola scriptura, the Scripture is the final authority. It is this connection that you make with God and with the divine that allows you to interpret what is the right thing to do at that time.
So the notion being is that God is knowable, and again I'm quoting here, by every human being, and that the Spirit of God will lead us all into truth if we are faithful in obeying God's voice in our hearts. And I could see why that would be politically combustible, if you will, because even to this day, so many of the organized religions are top-down, autocratic, again, dogma-driven environments where a personal connection is urged as long as it's the one preordained by that religion, and in the channels that are preordained by that religion. Now, at the same time, you are clearly a libertarian, both of the small L and large L variety. You've been you've extended yourself in being willing to run for office, and on this show on the Coalition, we regard anyone, regardless of your political persuasion, who runs for office as a patriot. So I congratulate you for that at every level, because your willingness to actually extend yourself into the body politic, I think, is the ultimate in patriotic acts. We talk about the non-aggression principle, and right now the non-aggression principle is the source of considerable debate within the navel-gazing, ceaselessly analyzing universe of Facebook and social media. As we run up into the election, it would appear that as a political philosophy, we are true to our spirit, obsessed with our political philosophy, regardless of the chaos that seems to surround us. So at what point in time did you discover your libertarian nature and attempt to reconcile that at the same time with your strong religious background?
That's an excellent question. So I think one part of what happened is I grew up, so there are various streams of Quakers, and I think maybe it would be helpful to step back and say a little bit about that. So there were Quakers throughout the world. The largest percentage of Quakers is actually in Kenya, but within the U.S., there are some dominant streams. One of those is conservative friends who still often will dress in plain dress and have no pastors and have what others would interpret as silent meetings. So there's certainly opportunity to speak. There is Friends United meeting, which is a combination of space for silence and open worship and pastoral-led meetings. And then there is Friends General Conference, which is typically on the more theologically liberal end and doesn't have pastors. And so these sort of three main streams of Quaker thought that are still present in the U.S. today. I grew up among evangelical friends in Ohio, and the emphasis was more on our Christian background than our Quaker background. So when I got to Hillsdale and started talking to others about their theology, there were questions about sort of, well, what do Quakers believe? And I didn't really have the answers to that. So it was in college when I was going through, that's kind of what you're supposed to do in college, right? Explore what you think about the world. And it was my first time really reading George Fox's journal, reading some of these early texts, coming to understand what it meant to be a Quaker and really starting to self-identify in that way. And I don't think at that point I had really done a lot in terms of integrating that, as you mentioned, with my political beliefs. And I think as I went on to sort of secular work, the free market think tank work, I didn't really spend a lot of time doing that, but I had this continual calling to pursue graduate study in seminary setting and in a Quaker setting specifically. And it was when I came to Earlham School of Religion that I was sort of forced to do that. As I said, I kind of tried to avoid it for a while, but it just kept coming up. And the more I thought about it, the more I felt like there are some real connections here that aren't being explored in a satisfying way for me. And that's when I started connecting with others who felt in similar ways and started to build the site and the social media presence.
Folks, we're going to take a brief break now, but we are listening to Matt Hisrich. Of course, he is the founder of the website Quaker Libertarians. He's also on Facebook. You'll see a number of links to him. When we come back from the break, we're going to quickly discuss silent meeting, and then I want to really get to the fundamentals, if you will, of pacifism and the non-aggression principle and its interaction with our current-day foreign policy. By the way, joining us on the radio is our featured musical performer this week. Her name is Shoshana Feinstein, otherwise known as the Defiant Diva. Right now, you're going to listen to a brief cut of Deeper Than. You're listening to The Coalition on the Worldwide Coalition Radio Network, AM 630, 99.7 FM, Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, and, of course, coalitionradio.us. We'll be right back.
Watch him there. He's here, there, and everywhere. It's Rhode Island's Anchorman, Gene Valicenti. Weekday mornings from 6 till 9 on WPRO.
Beacon Shipping Logistics will ship any car, any vehicle, anywhere in the United States with door-to-door service. Just call 855-3-SHIP-IT. They ship vehicles for thousands of auto dealers throughout the country, so you know you can trust them to provide the most reliable auto transport in the industry. And they offer open or enclosed shipping for your precious cargo. Did you see a car online and can't get there? Let Beacon Shipping ship and deliver it right to your door. Need to get your boat from West Palm to Warwick Neck? Beacon can do it. Call Beacon Shipping Logistics for transporting one car to an entire fleet. Call 855-3-SHIP-IT or beaconshippinglogistics.com for service that shines. Let Beacon Shipping Logistics take the stress out of your life. Beacon Shipping Logistics provides the most honest auto transport service in the industry. Beacon Shipping Logistics, your one source for transporting one car or a whole fleet. Call 855-374-4748 for a free quote or beaconshippinglogistics.com.
The New England Cannabis Convention comes to Boston this April. With over 100 vendors and 4 educational tracks, this is the event for anyone who wants to get involved in this explosive industry. From career opportunities, medical marijuana education, and live demos to doctors, growers, suppliers, and smoking and vaping accessories. That's the New England Cannabis Convention, April 23rd and 24th at the Heinz Convention Center in Boston. Tickets on sale at Cannaticket.com. That's CANNA ticket.com.
If you want extraordinary Mexican food, look to an out-of-the-ordinary place. El Mariachi, inside the Ramada Inn in Seekonk. At El Mariachi, you'll find authentic Mexican dishes at affordable prices. It's a great place for a business lunch, a family dinner, or after-dinner snack. Warm chips and salsa start the experience. Tableside guacamole and creative margaritas and sangrias keep it going. This hidden gem is worth checking out. El Mariachi, inside the Ramada Inn on Taunton Avenue in Seekonk, across from Price Right. Anything but ordinary.
Think you're fat? You might just be bloated. Find out by calling now for a free trial of Nubiotics, the new breakthrough that flattens bloated bellies fast. For a free trial, call 1-800-550-4232. Strict limit of 1 per household.
I used to be plagued by potbelly and constant bloating. After taking Nubiotics, my belly flattened and continues to get flatter. My sense of bloating and discomfort is gone.
If you've got a big belly, you might not be fat. You might just be bloated. Nubiotics is scientifically formulated with natural ingredients to flatten bloated bellies fast by cleansing pounds of rotting food and toxic sludge from your body. It even combats periodic heartburn and acid reflux. If your belly flattening results are too dramatic, simply reduce use to every other day. Think you might be bloated? See how much flatter Nubiotics makes your belly. But hurry, call now for details while we're still giving it away for free. 1-800-550-4232. That's 1-800-550-4232. 1-800-550-4232.
From Central Falls to Charlestown and South Kingstown to Swansea, you're listening to Southern New England's most informative talk lineup. Plus, news, traffic, and weather. Never miss it on News Talk 630 and 99.7 FM.
It's my station.
WPRO. Now, back to the Coalition with Pat Ford and Dave Fisher on News Talk 630 and 99.7 FM. WPRO.
And yes, we are back. The Coalition on the Worldwide Coalition Radio Network. Again, loud and proud, outrage, porn, free, civilly disobedient radio on the web at coalitionradio.us. Again, joining us today are special musical guest, Shoshana Feinstein. By the way, stay tuned at the very end of the show. We're going to have a special performance, an original composition by Stephen D. Cesare called I Saw My Lord, in honor of the Easter tradition. Joining me on the radio, of course, is Matt Hisrick, the Quaker Libertarian, as you will now be referred to. It occurred to me during the break that one of the central tensions, if you will, between organized religion and the libertarian movement is, of course, charity. And to that degree, the conventional religions, and I want to be careful when I say that. I don't want to couch you folks as being unconventional or out of the mainstream, but I'll call it the large organized religions focused on a charitable system that, whether it be tithing, whether it be, supporting the state, as in the form of Catholic charities, all wonderful people. But ultimately, if you subscribe to the concept that taxation is theft or that forced charity is theft, then that is certainly at a central disagreement with the concept of libertarian, or the concepts underlying libertarianism, which of course is that all charity should be voluntary. How do you reconcile something like that, or does the Quaker movement do that inherently?
Well, I think we have to sort of take a step back there historically, and historian David Beto has done an excellent work on this, is From Mutual Aid to the Welfare State, really talking about how this was a very strong tradition, both within the church, very broadly, and in secular fraternal organizations within the United States, of doing this kind of significant charity work, building hospitals, doing a lot of great work within the United States, leading up to the New Deal and Social Security, the sort of massive expansion of the state that really crowded out and made impossible these kind of organizations. And I would say that, the Quakers are not unique in doing some of this service work, although there were things Quakers were willing to do that others were not necessarily willing to do, and going into Germany during World War II, that kind of thing. But this is a history that really involves the state pushing out the church out of this role of voluntary charity, and other organizations as well that had nothing to do with church, but it's a history of state expansion, and I don't know that that's in tension with Christianity of any form. I think what has happened though over time is because of that, there is sort of this assumption that the state is the only body that can do this work. Mm-hmm. And what was about people coming together to solve their problems together and contribute to the needs of others has become this, well, the state is taking care of it. It's the only way we know how this can be done. And then you have the situation where virtue is associated with an expansion of the welfare state, which is extremely problematic when you start to think about the question of peace, because the welfare state is very connected to the warfare state, and understanding that becomes that's really the tension that anybody of faith, I think, has to wrestle with if they're going to have a sense of integrity.
Do you think the spirit of volunteership is dead in America as a result of the expansion of the state?
Oh, no, not at all. I think, there have been studies about sort of the level of charitable giving that is very significant and larger in the United States than many other countries. But I think it is more difficult to even imagine how we would conceive of a world in which the state didn't have a massive role in providing these services. And I think that that's something we do at the ground level, the grassroots level, the local level, of saying, how do we start this process of building this space between the state and our local organizations, and those places that between the individual human and the government, right. And that's the work that we can all begin to do and do more of. Just
as a quick aside, I don't believe in coincidences in life. I believe ultimately that people coalesce, people come together in coalition for reasons sometimes that aren't clear. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to spend about an hour or so in an extended conversation with a local fire department chief here, and you would say, "What's the connection?" Well, interestingly enough, here in not that far from Providence, smack in the center of one of the more wealthier growing areas is a small community that has a completely volunteer fire department. Here in the Northeast, fire departments and public safety are roiled with all sorts of chaos, costs, confusions, discussions about their future. And yet here you have this wonderful organization that is based completely on volunteers with just a paid chief. And so, how can this possibly work in today's complex world? And the chief cited to me, a very spiritual gentleman in and of himself, cited to me the fact that throughout last year that they had provided mutual aid to literally a half a dozen communities who had paid staffs, and yet because of the spirit of volunteerism and the spirit in their community, which was engendered because of the existence of a completely volunteer unit, that they had not had to ask for mutual aid on a single occasion during the calendar year last year.
Wow.
And so it says to me that once, and I hate to use the term pollute, but once we soil, if you will, that sort of sacred bond between volunteer and community, it just seems to go to hell awfully quickly. And that's how government grows, and then we begin this vicious cycle where folks can perhaps afford to write a check, but when giving up their time, they're so enmeshed in their dual careers and financially supporting the family because of these ever-growing onerous regulations of the state that they become less and less members of the community at large, whether it be a spiritual community or the physical community of the town you live in. I just found that striking yesterday when I in conjunction with speaking with you today. Silent meeting. What explain silent meeting? Because full disclosure, both of my children are 12-year graduates of Quaker prep schools and have engaged in silent meeting since they were literally tots. It's been a major part of their life. But explain to, if you will, the civilian community what silent meeting accomplishes.
Sure. So, there is this concept of the priesthood of all believers that's within a lot of Protestant thought, but Quakers take that very seriously, that when you've prepared over the course of the week leading up to worship, then you may have a message for the rest of the body. And so what we call open worship or silent worship or communion in the manner of friends, we are gathered together to create space as a body for the message delivered.
And so ultimately, when, and I've seen this in the flesh, and it's astonishing to see young children. Are you still with us?
Having somebody.
Oh, I think Matt, I think we've lost you a little bit. Can you?
And on all of us to be open and listening to that. And I think that's part of where the peace part of this comes in, and the respect for others, that anybody has that capacity and can help us better understand what God is calling us to, and to be open and willing to listen to others is a crucial part of where that understanding comes from.
Unfortunately, you dropped out a little bit there at the beginning of your dissertation. So
I'm sorry.
No worries. The joys of live radio. So
right.
So silent meeting is really the focus, if you will, even though it's not necessarily entirely silent. People give testimony during the meeting.
Absolutely. So it's really about creating the space for that, those messages of God to be given, and rather than appointing somebody to do that for us, that responsibility is on each of us.
So then, coming full circle, what was your first entanglement with you, if you will, of the non-aggression principle from the libertarian side of your life? When did you discover that?
Well, that's a good question. I don't think that I really came to that until within the last several years. Even going through and learning about free market principles and working at the state level with that, the non-aggression principle was not emphasized at that time, and I think it's becoming more prevalent in social media, and I think people are resonating with it more. I think part of what has happened in the last several years with the drone strikes and WikiLeaks and surveillance is that this narrative of the state being essentially good and essentially working for good is breaking down, and it's much more difficult to believe in that, knowing the sort of cognitive dissonance type thing. Like I can't continue to think that this is all good and all working for good when I see what's happening in the world, and in the sort of perpetual warfare. And how that comes back to the non-aggression principle is, if this is what the state violence looks like, what is my participation in that, and how do I get to a point where that violence at the state level can be restrained? And part of that begins with me saying, I don't agree that violence is the solution.
I want you to hold that thought for a second, and as we go into our next break, when we come back, we're going to discuss essentially the failures of our American foreign policy, the situation we find ourselves today in the Benelux countries and across Western Europe, and the provocative notion that how much of our aggressionist policies have really helped to create the environment we find ourselves in today. Folks, you're listening to The Coalition on the Worldwide Coalition Radio Network, AM 630, 99.7, WPRO FM. You're going to be listening in just a second, again, to the stylings, if you will, of Shoshana Feinstein, the Defiant Diva. I believe the song we're listening to right now is Grow Old With Me. So we'll take that out into the next break. Joining us, of course, on the line is Matt Hisrich, founder of the Quaker Libertarian website. We'll be right back.
Let us see each other not as the enemy, but family.
News Talk 630 and 99.7 FM, WPRO, along with WPRI 12, Eyewitness News presents Newsmakers and Executive Suite. Join us Sunday nights at 6 as Tim White hosts in-depth interviews with Southern New England's top politicians and other newsmakers. Then at 6:30, join host Ted Nesi as he showcases emerging businesses, interviews business leaders and owners, and highlights local business trends. Newsmakers at 6 and Executive Suite at 6:30, Sunday nights on News Talk 630 at 99.7 FM, WPRO.
This is Steve Silver, General Manager at Courtesy Hyundai. It's madness in March. We have the largest team of Hyundais discounted up to $11,000 off. You can score big and be the first to drive a 2017 Elantra SE from just $99 a month. Find new 2016 Hyundai Sonatas from just $16,880. Get 0% financing. Push, pull, or drag it in, Courtesy Hyundai will give you $3,500 for any trade. $3,500. All new Hyundais come back with Hyundai Assurance, America's best warranty, a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. And only Courtesy Hyundai will double it to 20 years or 200,000 miles. 2017 Elantra SEs for $99 a month, 0% financing, $3,500 for any trade. Now that's a three-point play, so hustle down to Courtesy Hyundai before the time runs out. And always remember John's belief.
If you bought anywhere else, you pay too much.
$3,500 guaranteed, limited one trade, 36-month lease, $29.95 due at signing. Includes rebate, plus tax, red, license, dock, and a $5.95 acquisition fee. Financing with proof credit.
The following is an incredible, life-changing free offer for anyone with hearing problems who wants to start hearing everything more clearly again. We're now offering free in-home trials of a revolutionary hearing breakthrough called Listen Clear to anyone who calls this special toll-free number now, 1-800-953-6929. Call in the next 10 minutes, and you'll also qualify for free shipping and free batteries for life. Listen Clear is precisely designed by top audio engineers. It adjusts to let you find the perfect way to hear everything, wherever you are and whatever you're doing. And Listen Clear is so invisible, people may not even know you're wearing it. And it's so lightweight, you may even forget you're wearing it too. Don't miss this special life-changing opportunity to hear everything more clearly again for free with a 100% free in-home trial, free shipping, and even free batteries for life. For free information, call now. 1-800-953-6929. That's 1-800-953-6929. 1-800-953-6929.
How you doing, caller?
Oh, starving. I'm on a new diet. All I can see is food I can't have.
Have you considered AT&T?
For my diet?
Obviously. You can get unlimited talk, text, and data usage and your second month free when you make the switch to AT&T GoPhone. And your first 2 gigabytes are high speed.
Gigs you can bite?
No, but with no annual contract, you get a 4G LTE network that's worth feasting on.
Ooh, 4G BLT.
4G LTE. Plus, it's just $40 a month after a $5 auto refill discount.
It's a loaded buffet.
Yeah, and none of the calories.
Thanks for your help.
What are you eating?
Ooh, nothing.
AT&T, mobilizing your world. Get the second month free when you switch to AT&T GoPhone. In stores or at att.com/GoPhone.
Oh, I'm so full.
Have you been eating this whole time?
Limited time second month free offer requires a port-in and eligible service. Exclude AT&T and Cricket customers. GoPhone account must have SIM card and must be funded within first 26 days of activation to be eligible. Free month equals value of monthly plan purchased at activation. After first 2 gigabytes, data speeds reduced up to 128 kilobytes per second. First month $45, $5 discount applied to monthly rate plan charge upon enrollment and auto refill. Additional charges and restrictions apply. See store for details.
From the Seascape Lawn Care Weather Center, here's your exclusive AccuWeather forecast.
Mostly cloudy skies for tonight. We'll have a low down to 31. Then tomorrow, clouds and some afternoon sunshine. Not a bad Easter Sunday with a high of 52. Mostly cloudy tomorrow night, the low 36. And a rainy Monday is expected. With WPRO's exclusive AccuWeather, I'm meteorologist Dave Samuel.
AccuWeather on the voice of Southern New England. News Talk 630 and 99.7 FM. WPRO. Now, back to the Coalition with Pat Ford and Dave Fisher on News Talk 630 at 99.7 FM, WPRO.
And you are back, listening to the Coalition live on the Worldwide Coalition Radio Network. A couple of important dates coming up just this week. First of all, March 29th, State House Rally, 3 p.m. Folks, this is stage 2. This is the end game for our governor who wants to tax medical cannabis. State House Rally at 3 o'clock. House Finance Committee at 4 o'clock. Folks, start making those phone calls again. We're going to be publishing again the list, the link to telephoneflashmob.com. This is critical. It's the end game now. We need to get involved. We need to represent. This Friday evening, for the first time ever, Fox Business News, a national network, will be hosting the National Libertarian Presidential Debate with the three top candidates vying for the Libertarian presidential nomination. We'll be watching at 7 o'clock at Brood Awakenings in Warwick. Yes, that cathedral to all things coffee house. Fabulous place. We're going to be watching on their custom 75-inch TV, Gary Johnson et al. Don't miss it. We'll have our now famous open political mic afterwards. If you've got an issue that you want to represent, please join us. Again, that'll be Friday night at 7 o'clock. Brood Awakenings, Bald Hill Road, Warwick, Rhode Island. Don't miss it. Joining me in studio on the line, our new good friend, Matt Hisrich, founder of the Quaker Libertarian Movement, if you will. When we last left, I was starting to allude to what I consider the central failings of American foreign policy. And first, as I like to say, my name is Pat, and I was a neocon. And, of course, you're supposed to respond, hi, Pat. And I openly supported a lot of the aggression, if you will, that led us today because, again, you talk about central conflict, go back to 9/11. I lost friends in 9/11. I spent a good part of my life working in the neighborhood. I spent a significant part of my life working in that building. So now, when you look at American foreign policy, if you're willing to honestly step back as a patriot, because remember, honesty politically is the most patriotic act of all, and you look back to World War I going forward, we, along with most of Western civilization, have screwed with the Middle East for the better part of about 100 years now, tearing up millennia-long relationships, tribes, countries, creating borders, fomenting rebellion, creating rebellion, taking over countries, not the least of which, of course, are countries like Syria and creating countries like Israel. Now, you can get into a separate conversation ultimately about the legitimacy of Israel, their value to us as a sovereign state and as an ally. I'm not here for that. What I'm here to discuss is the fact that we've got 100 years of violence leading up to the situation we are in today. And perhaps to me, the most challenging question of all that ascribes to all religion, and most notably a pacifist-leaning religion like the Quaker movement, is what would the non-aggression principle and strict adherence to Quaker policies have done to prevent where we are today? And is it still possible to, in a sense, extricate ourselves from the chaos that we saw this past week in Belgium? I give the mic to you, sir. Good luck.
That's an easy one. So George Fox has this quote, one of the founders of the Quaker movement. He said, "I lived in the virtue of that life and power that took away the occasion of all wars." And again, this was at a time of civil war. There was chaos in England. So he was in the thick of it as well when he said that. And as I think about that today, what are the occasions that are leading to war? I think the root of that comes back to me. And in each of us, whenever we say it's okay for me to take from you through the ballot box your property in order to use that for ends that I deem appropriate. It's okay for me to impose my views upon you and how you should live your life, and use the violent means of the state to do that. I am endorsing that approach, not only domestically but internationally, and I'm a participant in that process of saying this violence is the means to accomplish good ends in my life, in my community, in the world. And we have engaged in that for centuries now. I mean, that's part of the stepping back and saying what is the big picture here and how am I enmeshed in that? And in terms of, like, as you pointed out, this is nothing new. This is how the United States has engaged in foreign relations for some time now, that the way we accomplish the peace in the world, and this goes back to Roman times, right? The Pax Romana was really about imposing through force a peaceful resolution. And that wasn't always good for anybody who disagreed with Rome, just as it is today. If you have a disagreement with the power and might of the United States military operation. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think now that the American citizenry is recognizing this actually applies to me too. I'm a target of the military operations of the United States. That people are starting to question the entire logic that we're operating under, and whether or not, in fact, this is leading to good outcomes. And the war is doing that too. The sort of constant. Are we going to be able to get ourselves? It's going to be over soon. Mission accomplished.
Right.
But we continue to be entangled, as we were warned from our founding, in foreign policies and foreign wars, and that I think that as that narrative begins to crack, as we're pulling on the thread of this is for our own good, we're building democracy around the world, and stabilizing regions. That's going to have big implications that I think opens the way for discussions that are in keeping with libertarian principles.
Because look at the last couple of regions we've stabilized. Syria.
Right. Yes.
I think you begin and end at Iraq and Syria, or Libya, or any one of a half a dozen Western Saharan nations, or fill in the blanks at this point. It just doesn't seem to work. Yet ultimately, we're called cowards politically by the forces that either profit personally by using wars on fill in the blank. And by the way, a lot of this is inwardly directed. The same mentality has been directed against our own inner cities. The same mentality has been directed against now, and it's starting to be leveled, and this is the eerie part, if you come from this background as I do, but the blue-collar middle class now suddenly find themselves under the same beginning, if you will, the same type of pressures that the inner city and some of our quote-unquote opponents du jour, the same people that we financed a generation ago, the same people that we helped create, now find themselves. So it's a circular firing squad, isn't it? I mean, no one is immune once you go down that path, and so the libertarian movement, and if you will, seems to neatly dovetail with the tradition, the finest traditions of the Quaker movement that say no more, stop. We'll take personal responsibility for saying no more to aggression, to violence, which in my mind is why the NAP, non-aggression principle, is so critical to the future of the libertarian movement. It is not some canard to be cast out, if you will, like some constitutional protections seem to be. It is not an inconvenience. It is really, and I'm going to ask your opinion, really, to me, it strikes to the core of our entire belief system as libertarians.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, how do you, if you're going to hold to the view that government ought to be limited and constrained, then the non-aggression principle has to be at the forefront of that. So whether you're coming at it from a faith perspective or a non-faith perspective, that has to be crucial to the libertarian perspective. And so I think that's huge. And I think Jeffrey Tucker's done some work on this in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement and our this sort of faith in our international abuses and the way the government has worked internationally is also happening here domestically, as you pointed out, with the faith in our local police force. I mean, are they protecting us? Are they protecting our interests? And once you start to unravel some of that belief framework, then again, opening these very basic questions of what's the role of violence and force and coercion in society and in how I engage with others through the ballot box or in my own community. And those are opportunities for us to have really meaningful conversations about the future of our country and how we want to engage in our own lives.
Wow. Well, tell us how. We've only got a couple minutes left before we go to our musical finale, if you will. But how can folks find the Quaker Libertarians, both on social media and on the web? And will you be joining us in Orlando, or will folks from your movement be joining us in Orlando?
I can't make it myself, but I certainly hope you'll find some folks down there that represent this this viewpoint. But we're continuing to build every day. So yeah, you can find us on the web, QuakerLibertarians.weebly.com, WEEBLY.com. On Twitter is just Quaker Liberty, and on Facebook there's a Quaker Libertarians Facebook group. And that's managed with a few people from around the country. The Caleb Brown of Cato Institute helps with that. Jared Warner, a Friends pastor out of Kansas, and Robin Drain out in Phoenix, Arizona, are all helping to manage the Facebook page. So we're about building a movement, and that's where it's got to start at the local level.
And it starts with people, as we like to say on our show, taking it personally, doesn't it?
Yes,
Absolutely. Well, Matt Hisrick,
this stuff matters.
it really does. Thank you so much for joining us. Please don't be a stranger. Please keep us in the loop as to what you're doing. We'll do everything we can to amplify your presence up here in the Northeast. And, of course, have a wonderful Easter.
Oh, thank you. You too.
All right. Folks, taking our last break. Joining us in just a couple of minutes, very briefly, we're going to try and squeeze Joanne Lepinen in from RIPAC. Folks, you're listening to the Coalition on the Worldwide Coalition Radio Network. Of course, behind me, the musical stylings of Shoshana Feinstein, the Defiant Diva, as she likes to call herself. AM 630, 99.7 FM, Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, and, of course, CoalitionRadio.us, where within a day or so you'll be able to hear this podcast in its entirety. We'll be right back.
Need a vacation but don't have the funds? Don't worry yourselves. Just stop by Halfway Tree Authentic Jamaican Cuisine for a quick trip to the islands. Enjoy some authentic Jamaican food from Halfway Tree, named Best of Rhode Island by Rhode Island Monthly Magazine. Plus, every Saturday, it's New England's #1 weekly Caribbean party with Paul Michael. Halfway Tree is located in downtown Providence at 150 Chestnut Street. Visit us online at halfwaytreeri.com. Halfway Tree is Rhode Island's leading source for authentic Jamaican food and vibes.
Do you ever wish you had help managing the numbers in your life? This is Sandra Peters with Ameriprise Financial, and I can do that. I work with everyday people to help them plan for their future, whether it's college for your kids, a home, or your retirement. Take steps now to feel more confident in your financial future. Call me, Sandra Peters, at 946-9905 to arrange a complimentary financial review. 946-9905, or visit my office at Chapel View in Cranston. Ameriprise Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA, SIPC.
If you have sleep apnea and you're tired of dragging around your big, bulky home CPAP device wherever you travel, what I'm about to tell you may sound too good to be true. MiniCPAP.com now offers a portable device that's as small as a soda can and weighs less than a pound. Even better, you can try Transcend absolutely risk-free for a full 10 days. Call us now, 1-800-500-9785. Transcend is the world's first portable mini CPAP device. It gives you the freedom to sleep in total comfort anywhere you are. For even more freedom, you can add a battery that's as tiny as a deck of cards. Transcend is so small and so light you can fit it in your briefcase or purse to use anywhere you go. It's FAA compliant too, so you can even sleep comfortably while flying. It's true. You can enjoy the freedom to sleep comfortably anywhere, anytime you want. Call minicpap.com now for your 10-day in-home trial. 1-800-500-9785. That's 1-800-500-9785.
Introducing Fox Perks. It's a whole new way for slots to pay. Simply find your favorite Foxwoods slot title and play as usual. If a Fox Perks ticket pops out, you win up to $500 in cash or gift cards. Fox Perks. Visit foxwoods.com for details.
Folks, we're back. Coalition on Talk Radio, Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, Coalition_radio, of course, on the Mighty Twitter. We've just got a minute or so left. My good friend Joanne Lepinen from RIPAC has been kind enough to call in. Joanne, give us the lowdown on Tuesday. What's the 411?
Hi, Pat. We're having a rally at the State House at 3 p.m. There will be a public hearing on the governor's proposal. That's her proposal that would tag and tax every cannabis plant that's being grown for medical purposes in the state of Rhode Island at a horrendous tax level. So that is 3 o'clock Tuesday is the rally outside of the State House where the entrance is, and then 4 o'clock is the public hearing, room 35.
And we're encouraging people to sign up, aren't we? We
are encouraging people to sign up, and we are also encouraging people to educate their state representatives and their state senators that so that they know what's going on. Because, you know, Pat, this is part of the budget, and the budget takes a long time to resolve, and we've got till June that we're going to have this hanging over our heads. And what we need the state representatives and senators to do is to let the leadership know that they're not going to vote for a budget with the sick tax in it. And that's what we're calling it, is a sick tax, because it is a tax on people for having chronic debilitating conditions. We have most of the people in this program, or I should say a good percentage of the people in this program, are living on disability checks.
And
this is a tax on people for having those conditions and for using this as a medicine. And at a time when so many people are trying to reduce or stop altogether their reliance on opioids,
right?
This could be. I already know people who they're so discouraged and they're so afraid that they're not going to have access to this medicine that they're already turning back. They're already refilling their prescriptions that they were just getting off of. This is a very serious health problem for a substantial number of Rhode Islanders.
It really is an obscenity, isn't it? Joanne, thanks again for joining us. Folks, if you
thank you for everything that you're doing.
No worries. If you have a conscience, call your legislator this week. Telephoneflashmob.com. It's still up there. They all need to hear from you. Again, someone who clearly takes it personally. We're going to close off this week's show with a special rendition from our featured musical guest, Shoshana Feinstein. This is an original composition by Stephen DeCesare, sung by Shoshana. Take a moment, reflect on what's important in your life. This is Easter, the spirit of renewal and the tradition of Christ. Regardless of what religious tradition you may follow, we can all learn from each other and take cues from each other. Folks, have a great week. Take it personally.